Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we are going over my top 5 guilty pleasure premium ships. These are ships that really aren't that great at all. They all have some pretty major flaws about them, but you know what? I still like playing them because you can have fun in them, and that's what this game is supposed to be all about, right? Fun, right? Right, wargaming, right, wargaming. Anyway, so before we get into it, guys, if you do find yourself enjoying the video as we go through it, make sure you drop a like and leave a comment before you click off of the video. It would help greatly with the almighty algorithm here on the YouTubes. And a brief reminder too that this is all 125% my opinion. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get on in, starting at number 5. Which is the Tier 7 Japanese battleship, the Hyuga. Now, the Hyuga is an Issei class battleship. We have 2 of those in game right now, the Hyuga and the Issei. And the Hyuga, unlike the Issei, has not yet been converted into an aircraft carrier battleship hybrid monstrosity. Now, she is still in her full battleship form, with her 12 356mm guns. And that lets the Hyuga have actual kind of decent dispersion at Tier 7. And the Hyuga is one of the ships on this list that I don't really find there's too much wrong with it here. She just doesn't really seem to get that much love from the community, which I think is a shame, because in my opinion she's a pretty solid Tier 7. And given that Tier 9 so often gets roped up into Tier 10 and Super Ship games, Tier 7 has kind of gotten a little bit of a, I wouldn't say a reprieve from getting double up tiered, but it doesn't happen near as much as it used to. And the Hyuga, again, with 12 guns, I mean, that's a lot of guns for a battleship to have. And again, with the amount, they're fairly accurate. She has a decent reload time. On top of that, too, she does also get a reload booster for some reason. She's the only Japanese surface ship to get a main battery reload booster at the moment of recording. So you can get that 12-gun broadside going pretty darn quickly, again, with that reload booster. Now, it's not like a Jean Bar reload booster where you can get like 3 salvos back to back. It only lasts long enough to where you can get 2, unless you are extremely low and your adrenaline rush is putting in some overtime. So you get some pretty quick follow-up shots here with the guns, and the only real downside for me would be her armor's kind of squishy even by Tier 7 battleship standards. But, I mean, hey, a Tier 7 battleship with main battery guns that can actually hit what you're aiming at, that's pretty darn respectable too. She's really great at punishing cruisers that slip up and show you broadside. And again, with that quick follow-up with that reload booster, you can get another salvo going downrange pretty darn quickly as well to punish them twice fold. And I mean, hey, it does battleship things. Big gun, decently armored in my opinion, although again a little on the softer side, and it's a Tier 7 ship. I mean, Tier 7 battleship that can hit what you're aiming at. What more do you want here from the Hyuga? Alright, going down to number 4, we have the Tier 6 German cruiser, the Graf Spee. So, the Graf Spee is truly a ship that has really never been well received in the game, and for pretty good reasons. While the Graf Spee in life was a design that, well, the Spee herself did put in a lot of work with the Battle of the River Plate, in-game, it just doesn't translate that well. You know, bolting very large battleship caliber guns onto a cruiser hull that's decently well armored in real life gives you a, you know, battleship caliber guns that can do battleship caliber gun things in real life. But of course, in this game, that's a little bit different. Now, the main complaint about the Graf Spee is her accuracy and her reload. She is a cruiser, but her guns aren't cruiser accurate. They're more like above average accurate battleship guns. But we're talking about Tier 6 battleship guns here, which aren't that accurate in the first place. Couple that with a reload that's well above your normal cruiser reload time at this tier, and you have mediocrely accurate guns with a abysmal reload time for a cruiser. Now, offset by that is the fact that she does have pretty much every single German gimmick bolted onto this ship. You got torpedoes, you got hydro, you get a catapult plane. So the utility is there, and it's a pretty darn tanky ship. But when you're a Tier 6 cruiser that is always getting double up tiered into tier 8, that's kind of just painful. However, boys and girls, when you are in a tier 6 setting, this thing is downright, dare I say, enjoyable. Which is why, when we had the tier 6 clan battle season, there were so many of these things everywhere. So many Graf Spees. The meta for the tier 6 CB season was Graf Spees, some Perths, and a War Spider too, and then an Arc Royal, and then, yeah. Boy, that was a season. That was one of the seasons of all times, that tier 6 CB season. So, when you are top tier, you have a really tanky cruiser hull with guns that, if you can get them to connect to the broadside of the enemy ships, they're going to pack one hell of a punch. And you have torpedoes and hydro and a catapult aircraft, so the utility is there. There's some derpy fun to be had. You used to be able to build into her secondaries back in the day, which was absolutely hilarious, having, a tier 6 cruiser with a secondary build that actually kind of worked. You got hydro to spot all the DDs that want to try to, suicide rush you. Granted, again, with today's World Warships and the commander builds available, you can't really do too much about them when they decide to suicide rush you. But I mean, yeah, it's not that good of a ship, but you know what? I have fun in it from time to time. It's a nice ship to take around and derp around in. Operations, I can see it doing decently well in a couple of operations here or there. But yeah, a ship that's not that great, but definitely a guilty pleasure of my own. And going on down to number 3, we have what I don't think anyone would dispute is probably one of the worst premium battleships in the game, and that is the Oklahoma. So the Oklahoma is another one of the Pearl Harbor ships, and she is a secondary American battleship. With the Oklahoma, the West Virginia 44, then the Massachusetts, and the Georgia, and the Ohio, we now have the 4th American battleship line, which is the premium secondary line. And yes, the Oklahoma is a secondary ship. You can get her secondaries out to 8.3 kilometers, which by tier 5 standards is pretty darn good. That's only around a kilometer less than the Gneisenau and Scharnhorst, the tier 7 German battleships, can get their secondaries out to, and those guys are at tier 7. So what do you trade in order to get this? Well, a little bit of everything. First off, for some reason, her guns have a 37-second reload time. 37 seconds on 10 guns. Ow. That's... Wow. I don't know why, Wargaming, why. Second, you can only go 20 knots. So, unlike other secondary battleships that have some combination of speed or quicker, or at least a normal main battery reload time, you get a longer main battery reload time, you get a slow ship that, I mean, yeah. Now, it is at tier 5, and the engagement ranges at tier 5 are certainly much closer today than higher tier, but however, when you can get into the proper position with this thing, it is a lot of goofy fun seeing basically a turtle walk toward you, and then the secondaries start to open up on whatever it is that you are engaging. And there is some fun to be had here too. I mean, the American battleships, these dreadnoughts, they are pretty maneuverable. You can get their, well, you can't get their turn radiuses pretty short. They are pretty small turning radiuses. So there is some maneuverability advantage that you do have going on when you are in a brawling situation. Now, since then, of course, we've had several other lower tier premium ships get released that have better brawling capabilities, like the Agincourt with her, of course, just absolute broadside of secondary guns. But I do like taking the Oklahoma out every now and then. Everyone does think it's such a garbage ship, and if you can finagle it right, especially if you can get someone to kite into you, you can, just pound your way through them with, well, not really pound your way through them, but melt your way through them with the secondaries. They're very good at setting fires from my experience with them. And of course too, if you do have an adrenaline rush going, your main battery reload time will eventually get down to around 32 seconds, which is still long in my opinion, but a bit more manageable. Yes, seriously, Wargame, why does this thing have almost a 40-second reload on 10 guns at tier 5? Like, so many other battleships at tier 5 have, a high number of guns, because that's just how dreadnoughts and super dreadnoughts were back in the day. It's just an odd decision in my mind. Alright, going on down to number 2, we have the tier 8 premium German aircraft carrier, the Graf Zeppelin. Hey, I can't have a guilty pleasure list or a favorite ships list on this channel without talking about the Graf Zeppelin. I mean, what more is there to say about it that I haven't mentioned in all the other times it's been included in top 5 videos? So the Graf Zeppelin is probably undisputedly the worst tier 8 premium carrier, the worst tier 8 carrier in general. I don't think there's many that could even challenge her for it, except maybe like, was it the Indomitable, the British aircraft carrier that only has 2 squadrons. But yeah, Graf Zeppelin, a terrible carrier, but boy can you have fun, especially if you have some division mates with you in this ship. So Graf Zeppelin in game is essentially a cruiser with 3 flavors of spotting aircraft. Her main feature, at least for my purposes, is her secondary guns. She has some of the best secondaries in the game, as the carrier was designed to be a commerce raider, as in it would raid the convoys. Like, she would. Not like, you know, provide the attack aircraft for the convoy raiding, which she would do as well, but she would engage the convoys with her guns. So you have a bunch of secondary guns. You have some 150s on there, 105s with German HE that are incredibly accurate. You don't even have to build into them. Well, you can't really build into them, but you kind of can build into them. If you even don't build into them, they are already some of the best secondaries at tier 8. You build into them as much as you can with the available commander skills and modules. They become scarily accurate. No DD with any 2 cents about them will go anywhere near this thing, especially within its secondary range if it can help it, because the secondaries aren't that accurate to where they will melt down any enemy DDs that get near them. I have taken out cruisers, battleships, destroyers, other aircraft carriers, submarines with the Graf Zeppelin secondaries, and just full of giggles as well. Now, why is she bad? Well, the aircraft, they are fast but have no HP and no armor, and with tier 8 ships, they get thrown into tier 10 games a lot, so now you're in a carrier with weak planes that don't have a lot of armor or HP going against tier 10 AA, which, you're not going to be able to do too much against them unless you're a very good CV player. Oddly enough, this CV is like my only CV that I have decent stats in, even though it's like the worst CV in the game. I have decent stats in it because if I can help it, I try to get my secondaries in on the action. You'd be surprised how many people are too busy, just getting that CV rage attitude going on, and they get close to you, and then they realize, oh, wait a second, this guy has a secondary build, and now half my cruiser or my destroyer's HP is gone. It's a ton of fun. If you get like a smoke bot on your team, an American destroyer or something, you can drive this thing up to the enemy team, and if they don't have any radar or anything, you have your own aircraft. They spot for you. Your secondary gunners do the rest. It's great fun. Great fun. It's not a good CV. I wouldn't recommend buying it to be a great CV for any stretch of the imagination, but if you want a goofy ship, it is incredibly goofy. Going down to number 1, we have the tier 10 German premium battleship, the Große Kurfürst. Now, the Große Kurfürst is one of my favorite ships in the game, and definitely a ship that is not in the current meta. Heck, the first 2 minutes of this game, I was spotted leaving spawn, and I got melted for half of my HP because German battleship, but you know what? We still managed to have some fun with it in the end. This is my most played ship. Depending upon if you want to count all the clan battles matches from back in the day with the Yamato and the Yamato's count or not, but I've got, I think, a little over 800, 900 games in this ship. I don't know, I haven't checked in a while. But yes, the GK. One of the most out-of-meta ships, but one that I still have a ton of fun in, and that I love taking out all the time. Now, granted, I am someone that has a lot of experience in German battleships. I have Lucians. I've been playing this ship for years now, but definitely not a good ship by any stretch of the imagination today. I even used the wrong guns, according to many commentators. I used the 420s and not the 406s because funny gun noise, and because I myself just like the bigger punch in a fight. So, the GK today, I mean, heck, it's a brawler, like I've talked about plenty enough on this channel. Brawling's definitely out of meta, but the ship can still be a very good off-flank battleship, because if you have to push into a GK, you are going to have a bad time, especially with the 12.5 kilometer secondary gun range, especially if you have Lucians with the 15% boost you can get to the secondary battery reload time once his skill gets popped, especially with the armor that this ship has from medium to close range. It's very tough to get through. You're going to have to resort to burning it down, and it has a very large HP pool to deal with that. And if you have a commander on there that knows how to balance their damage con and their heals, you're going to be dealing with this guy for quite some time. And it's amazing how much better this ship is on an all flank if it just has like a destroyer hanging out with it to screen for torpedoes and to screen for other DDs. So the GK has a special place in my heart, definitely an out of meta ship, but one I always bounce back to if I just need like a fun game, or if I need to just like cleanse my palate of the current meta, even though I go and get stuck in a game with a bunch of super ships and submarines. But guys, those are my top 5 guilty pleasure ships. Let me know what you guys are in the comments down below. Hope you have a wonderful Monday, wonderful rest of your week. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and hope to catch you guys in the next one.